If you can get your kids to do that, or even your athletes, you're gonna be way ahead of most people, okay? So these are like really simple things. If you can get them going and get them in place, you're gonna put yourself ahead of people. A lot of the stuff I talk about today, you're not gonna find in research journals. This is a Jim Wendler quote. You want science and studies? Fuck you, I've got blood and scars and vomit. Okay, and not that research is bad, I don't want to be that guy, but this stuff hasn't been researched yet. And if it has, it hasn't been done correctly. I remember like chains and bands and stuff kind of got popular around early 2000s, like you started to hear about it a little more. I actually used to read the NSCA journals back then, and it wasn't until like 05 or so where we actually saw some stuff published. And I remember there was one I read, and then I went back to the methods section in the back, and they set the fucking chains up wrong. So like, my point is the research is a little bit behind where you guys are, like on the front lines, actually doing the stuff. And I think we all know that. Like people that actually train and are in the weight room, you're gonna find this stuff out sooner than anybody behind a microscope or in a research coat. Okay. Before we get into the X's and O's, there's some stuff that's really important, okay? If you don't get this next little section right, fuck all the stuff Dave talked about because it won't make a difference. They have to do the movements right, okay? And that's kind of a problem in our industry right now. Everybody wants to talk about movement, is their movement proficient? But no one's watching the movement in the weight room, at least from what I'm seeing, because it looks pretty bad. Okay, and it's very simple to fix. I was just talking with somebody, Chris, we were talking about this just a second ago. Like his 7-year-old son, he taught him to deadlift. So you're telling me you can't teach a Division I athlete to deadlift or even box squat at the very least? It can be done, okay? You just gotta know how to do it. But like I said, you guys are here, I was around great people, so don't think that I'm preaching to the choir, right? I understand you guys you're here and you're getting it done. Simple technique number 1, box squat correctly, okay? The first thing you have to do if you're gonna box squat correctly is set your height right. Okay, I see this on the internet all the time, the high box and all this other crazy stuff. So in order to get your box height right, the first thing you gotta do is work with a perpendicular shin angle. Dave talked about that a little bit with the knees being over the toes and stuff in the free squat. When we're box squatting, and I'm actually a little bit behind perpendicular, which is okay, all right? But make sure the shin is perpendicular, okay? And then the next thing you're gonna do, you gotta get their feet wide, okay? It's okay to do a close stance box squat once in a while for some variation. But overall, to bring the hips up and the hamstrings and the stuff that we really want to, because they're piss weak in those areas, you gotta get their feet out wide, okay? And this is in an article I put up on the site too. So the 2 criteria for our athletes were, it's gonna be a little uncomfortable for them. Okay, they're gonna want to be here because their hips are so weak, and you're gonna say move your feet out, and they're gonna do this, like an inch. They're gonna move their foot out an inch. Okay, so it's got to be a little uncomfortable, right? And the second criteria is their foot. It's gonna be different for everybody because they're different heights. Their foot has to be out far enough so when they're on the box and they go to stand up, they can have some lateral pressure or horizontal pressure going out the side of their shoe. Okay, so those are the 2, and that's just your feet. That's how to get your feet right. Okay, and we tell them this when you're coaching a group, whether it be lifters or athletes, that's where you gotta be, okay? So now that we have the feet right, now we'll sit them down on the box, and when they're on the box, the crease of their hip and the top of their kneecap, if I draw a line there, that's gonna be parallel to the floor, okay? Parallel has nothing to do with knee angle. Forget that, okay? So now, if I go to a meet, is this gonna be parallel? Well, we're not working with power lifters, so don't worry about it. It depends on your federation, right? But for your athletes, this is pretty good. And you'll see this like with your bigger guys, like maybe some of your football players, they might have a little more quad coming up. Not me, I really don't have much quad. They might have some more ass or junk in the trunk. So it's gonna skew this line a little bit. So for your athletes, if their femur is basically parallel with the floor, you're doing pretty good. All right, so this would be fine if you're training some some kids, all right? And most of the stuff I'm talking about is athletes, and a lot of it, like 99%, will have huge carryover to like an intermediate lifter, all right? You start getting advanced, you're gonna have to tweak it a little bit, but I'm trying to keep everything really, really simple, okay? So, get the box height set right. Why do we squat wide? That's why, right? There's so much of your time on an athletic field is spent with your feet out wide or outside your shoulders. You need to be strong there, okay? And another thing, if you squat wide, it's typically gonna bring up with your feet in close. It's gonna make you stronger in closer. But if you only stay in close and squat, and you try to go out wide, you'll get your ass kicked because the hip development isn't there, the hip and hamstring development, okay? So that's why we squat wide. And they're terrible at it, so that's where we spend most of our time. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Once they get proficient, we'll start mixing it up. But at first, we're gonna get out wide and get good at that, okay? Okay, so when we're box squatting, I might need help to play this video. I'm so mad that this worked and my Pantera video didn't. All right, so watch Sean here. All right, his feet are out wide enough where he can get a little bit of horizontal pressure going out, right? Next thing we're gonna watch is his shoulders coming up off the box. His shoulders come up first. So to stand up, watch him go down. His ass goes back first. It's a back and then an out movement because our hips go back and then our push out on our feet, okay? Get the lower body working right first, all right? And then once those things look good, then you can start working on the upper body like I talked about the shoulders. That would be the next thing. Make sure your shoulders are being driven into the bar instead of just standing up. It's not a leg press. And we'll watch it one more time. Watch his feet. You can almost see that pressure going out on his feet. He does a pretty good job. When he comes off the box, I'm saying. Open, push out. See it? Push out. That's why we wear Chucks. Don't get me going on Olympic shoes. Okay, so pretty simple, right? That's what we're looking for. If you can get your kids to do that and accelerate into the bar, or even your athletes, you're gonna be way ahead of most people. Okay? So these are like really simple things. If you can get them going and get them in place, you're gonna put yourself ahead of people. Because people don't teach this. The more I go around, you won't see this. Another option for speed squats that we found worked really well was squatting out of chains instead of the box. Kind of does the same thing, breaks up the concentric, eccentric. We'll make them more explosive because athletes draw on the stretch reflex their whole lives. They run and jump and play. Going from a dead stop to explosive movement is hard for them. But to me, in my mind, that's like 90% of the sports, right? Is that everybody talks about first step quickness? Well, you're training that with this. You're also training to change of direction. Because what are we doing when we stand up? We're pushing out sideways. We never trained agility, unless coach made us, and all of our agility scores improved. And I think that's a big reason right there. So going out of chains, the way to set this up, so we had elitefts.com, collegiate line, power racks. And what you do is set your J cup up, right? And then we had the safety pins. We would put them in the rack, you can see. Then we would drape our chain over that and go in a couple links, and that would usually put them at about parallel, okay? Now, these are harder. These are harder than a box squat. You'll get sore from this. So if they're not exactly parallel, that's okay, because it's gonna beat their hips up a little bit. Like you might wanna wave this stuff in and out, all right? But the feedback we got from the kids was really good. Like they felt really good after they were doing it. So like I said, if they're a little bit above parallel, it's okay, because it's pretty stressful. So watch, pause, and then watch his effort into the bar. Pause. Pretty good. Okay, so if you can kind of see that pop or that snap coming out of the chain, and then the same thing goes for off the box. If you can teach your kids that, that's going to help them. That's going to make them faster. That's going to make them run, jump higher, run faster. That stuff will help your max effort work have dynamic correspondence to the field. Okay? They have to learn how to flex fast. Technique 2, jump and land correctly.